Welcome to Natural Habitat Adventures Daily Dose of Nature. I'm your host, Brooke Mitchell, and today's topic is unraveling the mysteries of the gray whales of Baja with NatHab expedition leaders Sofia, Merino, and Maru Marcias. Oh my goodness, ladies, thank you both so much for being here today. Over to you.
Thank you, Brooke. Thank you very much. And thank you all for attending, for taking the time to watch and hear us today. And we're going to go ahead and start for this presentation. Maru and I have been working together in making it. So let's go ahead and start with a little bit of an introduction from ourselves. So, Maru, would you like to start, please?
Yes, no problem. Very happy to be here. I'm very happy to talk about whales. My name is Maru. I'm an expedition leader in Baja California, Mexico, but I'm actually from Argentina. I studied whales all my life, and I moved to Mexico because of the gray whales. So we will talk a little bit about that. I did my master in marine science there at the University of La Paz in Baja California, Mexico. And right now, I started working as an expedition leader in natural habitat.
Excellent. Thank you, Maru. And my name is Sofia, as you can see over there. I'm an expedition leader for NatHab. I'm a marine biologist. I'm based here in La Paz, actually, where both Maru and I live. And I cannot wait to tell you all about the gray whales because this is the species that actually got us both in this particular place. And yeah, it is such a privilege, I would say, to work with them and to be there. So let's go ahead and start with this presentation. So the title that we selected, Unraveling the Mysteries, I think it takes us to think more about what are those mysteries that the gray whales have. And with that comes, what are the things that make them unique? And so that's why we kind of chose these two titles for the presentation because both go very well together. So we're going to start with number one. We chose 5 different things that the gray whales that makes the gray whales unique that are going to push us to think about those mysteries for them. So number one is that the gray whales, they have the longest migration of a living mammal. So the gray whales are going to be moving every season between Mexico all the way to Alaska, actually. So here we can see in the map that is moving. If you start at the end of winter, they are leaving Mexico and they're going all the way north, which those are the colors that you are looking at. And then all the colors end up where? In the Bering Sea and the Chukchi Sea up in Alaska. So they have this movement as a population to come back and forth between these two different places. So if we think about the numbers, what does this really mean? So between Arctic and the Baja California Peninsula, where they come, they're going to be traveling 5,000 miles. If you like, to me, just thinking about this, they're swimming, is how do they do it, which is something that we're going to be discussing. But why on earth are they doing this also? So they go 5,000 miles in 66 days. This is an average, of course. Different whales are going to move at different rate. If it's a single, if it's mom and calf, they're going to be moving differently. But let's think about this as a general number. They are moving pretty fast, I think, if you think about it. Gray whales, most of the time, when we see them, you think about them as the slow movers most of the time. But they're going, especially when they're going south, they want to make it to Mexico. They want to make it there to socialize, to mate, to have their babies. So they have a nice steady rhythm to go all the way. But if we think about the whole migration, we're going to now give you this number. It's a 10,000-mile round trip that they're going to make from their feeding grounds up in Alaska to their mating grounds and socializing grounds in Mexico. So this is why it makes them the longest migration of a living mammal. Now, for many years, it was also a competition, let's think about, between humpback whales and gray whales, if one or the other has the longest migration. So with the numbers that I just gave you, I would say that was kind of the norm, or yeah, the average of that. But with recent information, we are learning that they may be adding some extra miles to their migration. So I'm going to show you here an example of one gray whale. She was named Barbara, actually. She was tagged in Sakhalin Island in the little happy face that you see there in the map. So she was tagged there, close to the Asian population, right? And the researchers were expecting that gray whale to move south, where? To the South China Seas. Because in the North Pacific Ocean, we have two different populations, in the east and in the west. So the Asian population, the movements are between Russia and then the South China Seas. So that was the expectation. But what do you think that happened? Well, Miss Barbara actually went to a different area. So she followed the coastline. Well, she followed a little bit of open water and then reached the Aleutian chain of Alaska, followed that Aleutian chain, and then made the journey where? To Baja, Mexico. So here is why now we can add, and we broke that record, the gray whales broke that record of having the longest migration, because we added some extra miles, making it a round trip of almost 14,000 miles. So I think this is pretty astonishing, because as researchers, it's always a thing of, you are very attached to your particular whale. So the gray whales right now are winning that battle in making of what we can tell you. I'm sure there's a researcher of humpbacks that can give us maybe another example of maybe that whale is trying to make it. But just for you to know that so far, these whales are the ones that have this record. So this map is just an extra map there for you to follow that track line. Actually, this is from the actual research paper that was published in 2015, and it's following that track line, all the way to San Jose del Cabo, to the tip of the Baja Peninsula, and then make it all the way back. So again, Miss Barbara, thank you for breaking that record. So from here, we're going to change to another topic of what makes these gray whales unique. And so they have, apart from the longest migration, they also have the closest migration to the shoreline. And I want you to see these maps, especially right now, the ones that are circling the gray whale, okay? So if you look at the humpback whale, for example, and all that is in blue, it is where you can find a humpback whale. If you go to a sei whale in the bottom, again, all that blue is where you can find the sei whale. So quite contrast when you look at the gray whale in the center, and you can see how narrow, how attached to the continental shelf, actually, the movements and where you can find this particular gray whales. So they have, again, the closest migration to shore, and here we can prove it. Here you can see it in a visual way, how they do it. And Maru, maybe you wanted to add something else here in this part.
Yes, I don't know if Brooke can help us with a little bit of the chat. People that are watching us, I would love to know if you have a bucket list of species of whales that you want to see. Because if you want to see, for example, humpbacks, there are a lot of places in the world where you can see them, because as you can see, they have a very cosmopolitan distribution. So probably you heard from humpbacks in, I don't know, Hawaii or Australia or even Antarctica. These are all places where you can see humpbacks. But if you specifically want to see gray whales, well, you have a little bit more short of a distribution. They are distributed, as Sofia mentioned, in the North Pacific. And of course, one of the best places to see them is Baja, Mexico. But if you want to put your bucket list of seeing a gray whale, well, you need to come to us. So I would love to know if we have a lot of whale watchers in the audience, people that have already done trips that want to see whales in particular, or gray whales in particular.
Excellent. So yes, so this checklist, of all the baleen whales, all those large whales, is going to take you to all different parts of the world. But as Maru mentioned, it's going to be an amazing one, a particular one here in Baja, Mexico. So if we follow and we continue this shoreline migration, again, we're trying to think of why, right? Why why they are having this really close migration to the shoreline. So researchers have been thinking about it for many years, and some of the information that we found is that they are actually following that continental shelf. So where the continent for us, when we go to the beach and when we see that the sun is setting, we're looking across that part of the ocean that is really close to the land. That is what we're going to call that continental shelf. And the gray whales are literally following that part. So they're not making across great depths of the ocean as humpbacks do, as blue whales do, for example, that they're going to move between one place to the other in the open ocean. They are going to follow that shoreline. And what is special about them is that that shoreline is going to be so dynamic in the type of sediment, right, that has at the bottom, the type of ocean bottom in that part. So we're going to have the bentos. The bentos is that what is that encompasses that part of the shelf. And we can have gravel, we can have sand, we can have reefs, we can have coral reefs, we can have a variety of those. And the gray whales are following this part, and they are going to, let's say, stop to either snack or in some places to have actually full meals that we'll talk about it in a moment in areas that have that soft bottom, that bentos, because they are actually bottom feeders that we're going to talk in more detail about that in a second. But they have a preference of that type of bentos actually. So they are following that to see what is there, and then on their journey south, there are some that actually stop in some other locations to, let's say, snack, right? But the majority of them actually that we know is that they are making that whole travel without eating that much. But again, these bentos, it is part of that reason of why they are migrating so close to the shore, examining what is there. Another thing that is quite important is the sounds. This is, of course, not a gray whale. This is a humpback whale. But I thought that the picture that this person made was quite interesting to put it out there, is that we think that they are migrating and they're moving really close to the shore because they are following their senses also of what they are listening. So in the ocean, we have all sorts of different sources of the soundscape of that of those noises that they're going to hear. But in the shoreline, we're going to focus in some of them. Those are going to be the wave turbulence. So we have big waves that are, pushing, that are making all of these sounds in that part of the continental shelf. And also we have a lot of activity of the fish, of the natural wildlife that is there, that might guide the whales that this is the right place. There are actually new hypotheses out there that maybe also that human noise, that anthropogenic noise that we're putting out there that is really focused in the shoreline, maybe also guiding them, which sounds, a little bit, I would say, like a wild card out there, but that's another theory that is out there. But so if we think about it all, there's something that is guiding them to bring them to that place also. The gray whales are, in comparison to other large baleen whales, they're pretty small. So maybe they feel safer also in that area. We know that in some of the kelp beds, the gray whales are also kind of hiding. They're going in between. They could be snacking or feeding in those areas. So there could be a multiple of reasons. But the truth is that right now we're still thinking about why they have this super coastal migration, this coastal movement, which it is an amazing thing for us because then we can see them, right? So if we change to the other topic that is closely related to what I just mentioned, is number 3. The gray whales are the only bottom feeding cetacean. That's it, only them. And here I'm going to play a little video that illustrates that. So the gray whales are focusing on little crustaceans that are stuck in the bentos, in that sediment, and they're going to go down, they're going to take chunks of that sediment, mix with the little crustaceans, with the amphipods, and they're going to then filter that out, filter all of that, and then those little crustaceans are going to get stuck in their balines, and they can take them and they can eat them. So again, they are the only ones that do this. Now, it is important for you to know what other whales do. Well, this is just a picture of those little crazy creatures, how they look, both of them. the majority of the whales, of the gray whales, are going to be loving those crustaceans that are in the bottom. But yeah, they're kind of crazy looking. Cumiacians and also amphipods that you see in those pictures. So what happens to other baleen whales? We have the humpback whale that we all, hopefully you've heard about them, maybe you've already seen them, and they are going to do something that is quite special, that is the bubble net feeding. They can do it as a single animal that is bringing, that burst of bubbles out, putting all that krill or fish together that goes to the surface, and then they can just go and launch all of that, expanding all those ventral pleats that they have, a big mouthful of krill and fish. So the humpback whales do this bubble net feeding, and they're quite famous for it. But other whales, like if we look at right here in front of you, sorry, I'm moving my screen here. There you go. If you look at the bowhead whale, they're going to do a completely different thing. They have actually the largest baleens of all the baleen whales. They can go up to 14 feet, so pretty big. And they're going to be skimming in the surface, their krill that they have there. So they are skimmers, we call that. So different strategy for a different baleen whale. And then if we think about sei whales, minkies, fin whales, blue whales, they're going to do engulfing. So they can do that in the surface if the food is in the surface. They can do that also at depth, 200 meters or more, where the plankton or their fish is, depending on the species. And they're going to, again, opening all of those baleen plates, expanding, and then engulfing a mix of water with their prey and filtering it out. And the gray whale is the crazy one that is sticking to the bottom, and it chose that particular niche, right? It is exploring that particular niche that the other whales are not. So this is something quite unique for them, and they're going to be doing this again in the Chukchi Sea and the Bering Sea up in Alaska. So again, gray whales love their bottom, and this is a great image that kind of depicts everything that I mentioned. This is a scientific illustration of Bruce Nelson that you see over there. And this is a picture that I actually got to take in a recent trip. I was in Kodiak Island, and for a different reason. I wasn't there for the gray whales. I was actually there for the bears. And to my surprise, in the local museum of the refuge site, it has a big skeleton of the gray whale with information about it. And I learned some amazing things that I'll share with you. But I love this illustration because it sums up how they do it. They're bottom feeders, most of them from the right side, actually. We've learned also the right side of the baleens are going to be shorter because those are the ones that they are using more and more. And their preferred prey is going to be these little crustaceans, cumiacians, and amphipods. And just, as a whole kind of summary of what they do over there. But so this picture that I took in this museum got me thinking, because as expedition leaders, as a marine biologist, we are used to the behaviors that we see in Mexico, that we see here in Baja. And for me, it was important to kind of look for that missing part of the life cycle that was feeding. And it's something that I've never seen, because in Baja, they are not feeding. They are mating, they are socializing, and they're having their babies. So when I saw this little exhibit in the museum in Kodiak, of all places in Kodiak, I was freaking out, of course. And I texted Maru and I texted our other colleagues in the group, and I bought a bunch of stickers of gray whales, and I was freaking out because I looked some information, and then I found that near Kodiak there is a feeding place for the gray whales, and the researchers that went there went in late August. Well, I was there in late August. So 2 days after I saw that exhibit, I went out on a boat to Pasakshak Bay and I saw them feeding, which, as you can imagine, I've been working for them for the past 6-7 years, and I've never seen that. I've read about it, I've seen some pictures, all of that kind of stuff. So I was freaking out, and there were some colleagues of mine, and we were all, dancing as crazy people. It's true. But what we got to see is the pictures that you're looking at right now. So a lot of flukes, because they're taking dives. So a lot of flukes, vertical flukes. When we are in Mexico, we see flukes, but they have like an angle because they cannot go deep. It's shallow lagoons. But over there, they are going, we were in an average of 100 feet in that place, actually. So they were going down taking the chunks of the bentos with all of that, and we could see what we call sand plumes, which is the sediment. So we would have a drone flying over, we would see like sediment in the surface, because they are removing all of that, right? And then it comes to the surface, and you see those sand plumes. And I was able to see that, the flukes, and just the dorsal side. So basically it was dorsal side, fluke, and that's it. Yes, we were surrounded by a lot of these gray whales. We had like around 50, I would say, around us, and we saw spouts all over the place. But honestly, another thing that I've read is that they are stinking the places that they're eating, and that they are not that fun to watch. And I was like, come on, those are gray whales. And yes, they were just doing their thing, which is so important. They are there for one reason, and is to feed, to eat as much as they can, to make that whole journey of more of 10,000 miles, right? Back and forth. So they are just eating. They couldn't care less about us. The boat was just drifting, the whales were doing their own thing, and I was taking pictures. And that was it. So yes, it was an exciting thing for me to see this part of their life cycle, but also I was like, I thought to myself, I cannot wait to go back to Mexico and see them as we see them back in Baja. So with this, Maru is going to talk more about, I would say, the other side of the gray whales that is amazing, and that is going to be the appealing thing for us when we go outside, and that it makes also, and why these gray whales are unique. So Maru, take it away, please.
Thank you, Sofia. I gotta say I'm a little bit jealous, but also happy for you because you completed a research picture that you need to have for the life cycle, as you mentioned. I was very happy when you sent us the pictures. And yes, as Sofia was saying, another thing that makes the gray whales unique is their friendly behavior. But this friendly behavior that we know of, or maybe you heard of, has to happen or has a reason to be in the breeding lagoons of Baja, Mexico. So as you already saw, they were feeding in Alaska. They were doing all the migration. So as Sophia already mentioned, when they are on their feeding grounds, they are doing one thing. When they are migrating, they are doing another important thing. And when they arrive to Mexico, they start getting social, let's say. So there's a lot of social behavior in the lagoons, right? So here, as you can see, this is a map of the Baja California Peninsula, and we have the breeding lagoons that the gray whales arrive to. So the first one is Escamons Lagoon, is the northern one. Then San Ignacio is the middle one, which is where we do our natural habitat trips. And Magdalena Bay is the southest one, and is where I was doing my research in the last few years. So all the whales are arriving to these congregation points, and it's the part where they are doing the mating, as was already said. So some of the whales arrive as a solitary, and they start finding a mate. Others, that are the gray whales that got pregnant the year before, are going to give birth and are going to nurse. So these breeding lagoons are very important in the reproductive cycle. And why do they start? Why do they choose these lagoons? So we can think about the water temperature, which is very important for their metabolism. So there has to be an important reason for them to choose this place. And there is several reasons. One of them is the temperature, as I already mentioned, but also is the water depth that allows them to be there resting a lot, and also the context, the historical context. These gray whales are arriving to a place that is a natural reserve, that Mexico has a very important conservation laws around it. So we have the Vizcaíno Biosphere Reserve. So there is a lot of regulations that allow them to be safe, to don't have any natural predators or any human, let's say, hazard, or at least the least possible of the human hazards that there could be on the way. So once they are here, they are relaxed and they start being whales. That's what I like to say, is that they start doing whale stuff, whale behavior. So as you can see in this picture, for example, they are doing spy hopping, they are doing breachings, they are relaxing, just resting, or they are traveling in and out of the lagoons to find mates, to give birth, to nurse, all of these important things that they are doing during their life cycle. But the thing about this, and if we go to the next picture, is that if you see here, I don't know if you get to see, but there are at least 3 whales. One of them has their pectoral fin on the southern right of the picture, and then there is 2 other whales that are spy hopping. So each species of whale that has a breathing ground is going to socialize. So this happens with a lot of species of whales, but mostly with right whales, with humpbacks, and with the gray whales, but not as much as with the rorquals. So all of these whales are showing these behaviors because they are kind of communicating between them. So that makes them already sociable, not necessarily with humans, but sociable between themselves. And even though they are not as hydrodynamic as the rorquals are, they are able to breach, they are able to do a lot of stuff that they are doing because there are other whales around. Um, so continuing to the next one, as I was saying, they are whales being whales means that they are not migrating, not focusing on feeding, so they're focusing on themselves, and this allows for close encounters with them. This is a picture that I took last season in San Ignacio, and that's my colleague over there, Andrea, the other expedition leader. And all the context, these small lagoons are allowing to be a density of whales that as a research or as an expedition leader, I haven't seen in other places. Because one thing that happens for me is that sometimes we are doing the census and we're talking with other whale researchers, and they said, oh, we had a wonderful day. We saw like 7 humpbacks or 7 groups of humpbacks. And for us, it's kind of like only 7, because sometimes in the peak season, we can have almost 100 whales in a very short area. So when we're doing a census or when we are doing another type of research, we can see a lot of whales in just one day. So the safe conditions, all the regulations around it, and also all the physical conditions are allowing these whales to be in there and to be safe and to be expressing themselves as the animals, as the marine mammals that they are. So continuing with the other one. As you can see here, there is a map of the San Ignacio Lagoon, and it's actually, in terms of size, it's quite small compared to, let's say, going out to whale watching and going to the open ocean, right? So here is the lower part of the lagoon is the whale watching area that we have allowed. And in this part is around, let's say, less than 10 square miles. It's the part that we have all the interaction. If you would do a census through the whole lagoon like the researchers do, it's only 30 kilometers in length, so it's quite small, and this allows us to have a lot of density of whales. So not only a nice number of them, but this nice number combined with a small lagoon makes a high density of whales. So in the other one, this takes me to tell you why so in the other one, what you can see here is the census that the researchers have made the last year. And as you can see, we had more than 200 individuals in the peak of February. So in late February, there was already a peak. This number varies a little bit in the different years, but it's sort of like we have like 2 peaks. The first peak is on the middle of February, and the other one is a little bit later on. And this is because if you remember the first map that we show you, there is also Magdalena Bay, which is the other part where I was doing research. And the gray whales that arrive all the way down to that bay, when they are traveling northwards back to their feeding grounds, they will do a stop also in Laguna San Ignacio, some of them. So this allows for a lot of interaction between different groups of whales that are arriving to the different lagoons to socialize, to have another chance of mate maybe, or to carry their youngs all the way to the north. So as you can see, it's a lot of different things that allow the gray whales to be protected and to be relaxed enough to become something that makes them unique, which is to be the most friendly whale. And this takes us to another of the mysteries that we as researchers have, and everyone wonders, why are they so friendly, or what does it mean to be a friendly whale? So most of the times when we are studying whales, we have to use a protocol and say, okay, if the whale is avoiding the boat, no, it's doing an evasive, or if he's being neutral to the boat. But if it's a friendly whale, that means that probably what she's doing is heading straight to the boat because it's curious, right? So this is very, very difficult to do, the research of the behavior of a wild animal. But the gray whales allow us to think about all of these research questions and allow us to think about animal behavior in new ways. I think it's very important to think about all these questions because all the marine mammals are mammals like us, so they have a period in their life when they are curious, which is when they're young. It's more curious, but something happens. Maybe when they have a positive experience with the humans, this behavior of curiosity is reinforced, or it stays in their memory because they are long living beings. So each year after year, they are interacting with us, and they are not getting any reward other than play, right? So we don't know why they are doing it, but they're definitely doing it each year after year. So if we see to the next one, I think I want to show you this video because this is what we mean about a close encounter. So the gray whales have a low frequency sounds that they make, and it's quite similar to the sound that the boats make. So here you can see that the boat is quite small. The whale approaches towards the boat and just starts to feel the vibration of the boat, starts looking at it, gets curious, and that's just it. It's just an individual among maybe 200. One of them chooses to come to see what it is, and then just goes away, right, for a few seconds of happiness to everyone, right? But this is exactly what curiosity is about. Maybe it just lasts 2 seconds, maybe it lasts a little bit more, but all the conditions are here to make that happen. I always think about other places where I do research. I have been lucky enough to do research in Antarctica, and I've seen a lot of whales. But when I have an interaction with the whales, it may be one time in all the research month that I've been there in a big boat, in a cruise ship, for example. And here you have like a very small boat, and the chances, because of all of these factors that I mentioned, are just getting higher and higher, and just it doesn't get. I think it doesn't get any better than this regarding the close encounter with a whale. I don't know what you think about that, Sofia.
Yes, no, I totally agree with you. And it is you that is on top of this boat, right? Kind of waving your hand there. This is an amazing video. And it has to be, we have to think about everything that Maru has said, really, to make it a special place. It has to be about the oceanography of the location, right? It's a place that it's a small lagoon, it's shallow, the behavior, they are relaxed, everything that Maru has said. I hope that to all of our listeners, you're taking into account that it is a unique and a special place that we have this. And that's why, if you're passionate about whales, if you love conservation, of these animals, San Ignacio Lagoon, hands down, it is the best place in which those two match: the conservation for these animals and the experience as a traveler for these animals. So I hope that everything that we've been putting out there in sharing with our stories, you're taking it into account, for you to make a decision if you want to come on this trip, or if you've already been with us and you're watching us because you love the place and you want to think more about it, right? But yeah, this is a special place, and I hope it's showing to all of you. And Maru has an amazing story that she wants to share with all of you about her life, kind of. So please, Maru, tell us.
Well, I'm just sharing it short because I want to hear also from you. But this on the left side, you can see a cartoon that I did when I was 15 years old, where I basically had discover a new species of whale, which is the whale rabbit, as you can see. And I was like talking to the whale and saying, "Believe me, I don't want to go." That's what it says in Spanish there. And I had my own research boat, and I was going out in the ocean to look for this new species. And for me, it's just amazing that the someone took this picture for me. I'm very thankful for this picture because when I saw it, I just immediately went back to this Maru of 15 years old that was actually fulfilling the dream of having a whale very close where it kind of looks like I can talk to it. So after many years of researching them and studying them and also just enjoying them, um, this dream was true, and I just hope that we could transmit our love for whales, and especially for gray whales because they are kind of my favorite, if you haven't realized by now. But yes, just an anecdote from that. I think there's a lot of things to share. I hope if you already came with me, you already know. But maybe if you come with us, you will know that we have a lot of different anecdotes and experiences with them. Um, for example, this makes me think of one time I was doing photo ID, so I was trying to identify a gray whale, and I wasn't able to take the picture right away. So I just waited for it to come out again, and she made me wait for it like 18 minutes, which is the longest time. 18 minutes is the longest time that I've waited for a gray whale to come back up to the surface. And that was just because she was resting, probably because she came out exactly at the same spot. But this is not what happens normally. Normally we see them after 3 or 5 minutes at most, surfacing to breathe. And I think something that happens very often is that we get very spoiled by them because these close encounters are very relative. I mean, they are so close that if you see them several times, what happened to me is that I took some naturalists from San Diego, and by the third day, they were saying, "Oh, that whale is far away," and she was 20 meters away. So she was not far. She was just far compared to how close she had been the previous days. So I think it's very relative, and how spoiled these gray whales have us, because we have a small boat. They are super big animals, and we are super close to them in the lagoons. So how close you can get to a gray whale and to see them just being a whale is just amazing every day, and they just get us a little bit spoiled, like Sofia mentioned when she saw them in Alaska.
Absolutely. Um, and yes, and to add to your story, I also have an amazing story. I think we were thinking about what are those special moments, right, that we've had in the lagoon, or for you, that realization of you're living what you thought about it when you were 15, and that's super special. And for me, so this story starts with the man that you're looking at the picture. His name is Vernon. I met him when I was a local guide in San Ignacio Lagoon. This is like 8 years ago. My first season working as a guide, as a naturalist there. And Mr. Vernon, he is actually blind. And when he heard, he was, I don't remember exactly where from the US he was, but wherever he was in the US, when he heard about the opportunity of maybe having a close, a really, really close encounter with a gray whale, he said, I need to go and try and do that. Just to be able to hear them up close, to be intimate in a small boat, as Maru was mentioning, not with 100 more people in a big, whale watching vessel, which is usually what happens. He was like, I need to try. So he came to Mexico with his partner, and we were just in awe of how he was experiencing the gray whales, because he cannot see them, but he was able to listen to every single breath that was around him. And for me, as a new naturalist, I was challenged in trying to explain what was happening with the distance. We have this amount of whales at this distance. One is coming from the right, one is coming from the left, one is coming from behind us, one is at 2 o'clock. Like, right? Because we have a lot of action happening in that moment. So he was like, yes, I can hear 3 spouts to my right at 20 yards. I can hear 10 spouts at. So it was amazing just to see him witnessing the gray whales. And one of the days that I looked to the captain, and the captain recognized actually a mom and a calf, that they are friendly. We can recognize them because when you're going out every single day in San Ignacio Lagoon, you get used to the whales that are friendly because they are the ones that are checking you out, that are saying, hey, you know what's happening here. So that particular mom, the captain told me, oh, this could be the one. And we've already been out at least 3 or 4 times before this particular encounter. So the captain, kind of left the boat right there, and as Maru was mentioning, kind of just we were approached, we were hijacked by these gray whales, and they just popped right next to it. And the whole people, which we were like maybe 6 people on that boat, were trying to help Mr. Vernon, to guide him towards where the gray was. So it was a lot of commotion, a lot of things happening, because the whales sometimes trick you and go to one side of the boat, then they go underneath, then they go to the other side of the boat. So we're all like, oh my God, where is this whale? And finally, Vernon, he was just in front of me. I was taking video, trying to record all of this situation, and this gray whale calf just comes right in front of him, and I just grabbed his hands and put them in the water, and I was like, move them, move them, move them. Like, the whale is right there. And he was able to have that connection, to have that moment, to feel for him, right? Like, how important it is touch for someone that cannot see. And it was a life-changing experience. I remember we were all crying. The captain was crying, this big man, right? This fisherman. I was crying. The rest of the boat, of course, his partner was totally crying. But the other people that didn't know him, we were like, oh my God, why are we crying? Because we all knew that in that particular experience, right? And this is a story that I've shared with my family, with a lot of my friends, because yes, it's always there. Every day that I'm there, I'm like, is this moment that changed the life of Mr. Vernon, and that changed the life of everyone that was in that boat. So for me, this is kind of my unique moment. If I have to go back, it's going to make me cry again, I think. It gives me the chills every time I share this story. Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. But with this, we're getting to the end of our presentation, and we're reaching number 5. And number 5 is that this is making the most studied whale. And truly, this is because, as I put it there, the sum of all, right? They are close to the shoreline. It is easier access compared to other large baleen whales that are in the open ocean to go out and study them. In Alaska, there are groups of researchers that I go out to study them while they are feeding, because you can see them from the shoreline actually feeding. In Kodiak, I was in the shoreline looking at them, and then we went out on the boat to have a better encounter. And then they follow in the migration super close to the shoreline. Maybe some of you actually live between Canada and then Washington, Oregon, California, all the way to the Baja Peninsula, and you kind of know that the gray whales are passing by through that water. and finally making here to Mexico, to this place that they've been studied for at least since the 70s. So that's why these whales are mysterious, are unique, and are pretty special. And all of these conditions makes them the most studied whale. Of course, there are things that we're still wondering about, right? Every time all the expedition leaders get together with Maru, that she was worked in research with the gray whales, and we're like, okay, why? What's happening here? What's happening there? And for the researchers, it's still the same thing. So, we are still learning about them, and we're still sharing moments with them, and there is so much more to learn about them. But yeah, with this, I would like to finish it. Maru, I don't know if you want to add something else, but thank you all.
Yes, just that with the great power comes great responsibility. So I think it's very important that we continue on this path of studying them because they are so special, so unique, and yet, as we already said during the whole presentation, I hope it was clear that there's still a lot of mystery. If you think that we were going to answer all of the questions, it's impossible because it's an amazing animal that just keeps adding more questions for us. So thank you very much for listening, and I hope you have some questions.
Thank you.
That was incredible, Sophia and Maru. Like I got chills, Sophia, when you were talking about that encounter with the blind man and the whale. Oh my gosh, I can only imagine what that was like to be there and experience that. So thank you for sharing that story. We do have lots of amazing questions in here. So thank you, everyone. If you have a question, please, in your control panel, there is a questions tab. Plop that on in there. And if we have time to get to it, we will. So let's do Q&A for about the next 10-ish minutes and we'll see how many we can get through. So first, well, this is a good one. This goes on the conservation of gray whales. Is the population increasing, decreasing, or staying stable?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Maru, did you want to tackle that one?
yes, actually, it is a little bit going down the population because we have had the last years we have had what we call an unusual mortality event, which is probably linked to less food on their feeding grounds, and it is stabilizing. So we have lost almost half of the population. So we used to have like 26,000 whales, but right now the number is around 16,000. So it's gone a little low. But the good news is that the last year it has stabilized, so we haven't lost that many. And the calving is starting to slowly grow again. So they're starting to have more calf each year. So we hope this tendency will let us know that the unusual mortality event is over. And also, I like to say that these are very resilient whales. They have gone through a lot of hunting in the previous century, and they have come back to reach the population their capacity level. So this means that if they have the good conditions, they can thrive again. So hopefully they are on this way of going back. But yes, the numbers are lower in the last years, are lower than they used to be.
Thank you so much for explaining that. This is a really good question, and I have various versions of it. So, since gray whales are curious and friendly, do they ever get injured by boats or come in contact with ships during travel?
Yes, that's a great question. And yes, because they are so coastal, right? It is where most of our activities as humans are, with our big ships, with our smaller ships, all sorts of things that are in the ocean. So yes, they can be, they can have a ship strike. They can, some of the whales that are washed ashore, the veterinarians go and study them, right, to see what was the cause of death. And for some of those are ship strikes, and we can see some of the scars. Some survive if it was a smaller vessel, some survive, and we can see scars when we are in the lagoons, and we explain that to our guests, what type of scars they have, is if it's a natural scar or a human, made indirectly by a boat. um, so yeah, in some of all that could happen, that happens, and that's why they are so important to us, because they are letting us know what is happening, with all of these signs, because we have so many interactions with them, where in the migration route, for example, we need to be more careful what times of the year there should be speed limits, right, for vessels, or changing, which it has happened for other species, changing shipping lines where you avoid the contact with them. So that's why they are important, because they are carrying that flag, right, of protection for other species, and letting us know, like, hey, you need to pay attention into this or that. When we are in the lagoons, the captains know how to maneuver the boat around them, and they are experts at that. And they lift the engine, they put it in neutral, they change directions, they do all of these different things to avoid the contact. This being said, whales are so curious about the engine because of the sound, as Maru was mentioning, the vibrations that it's making. So, and the captains know about it. So as soon as the whale is coming down, heading towards that part, they are maneuvering and thinking about it, and you can see that the captain is already with the engine kind of lifted, right, and just staring down, hoping that the whale moves so we can continue. So yeah, it's a lot of different interactions, but good to account all of those.
And speaking of that, for this friendly whale behavior, this is a really good question. Is this by chance being passed from mother to calf? Is that maybe how this phenomenon is continuing?
Maru, do you
Well,
want
it
to?
could be. We don't have an answer for that, but it definitely could be one of the reasons. As we were mentioning, there can be like a reinforced behavior where they approach to a boat, have a positive experience, and then just continue doing it. So it's very interesting to see all this progression with the calves, because the mothers are very protective of the calves when they are newly born, but after a while, once they get to a size, they kind of like need a little bit more of rest, and the calf starts being more playful. And so happens to us that the mother is like, okay, you have it, like it looks like she's showing it to us, and she wants it to play. So it's kind of interesting behavior, but we haven't had yet like a photo identification of a calf that then grows all the way to an adult. So we will have to wait a few years. Let's say like, yeah, a juvenile, once they get like, yeah, at least 3 years to say this an adult. And we will have to have the photo identification of the same whale, and it has to be friendly. But this has not been studied yet. We have some pictures and some photo identification of gray whales that are friendly, and that it repeats over the years, but it's not the same. It's not yet a law, let's say. So we don't have like, okay, this whale is going to be curious all the years, right? And it's kind of makes you think about human behavior also. It's very flexible. So maybe one year it is, and maybe another year it has other things going on. It has to mate, it has to do other stuff, and it doesn't want to be friendly with boats. So but still, it's something that is a very good research question that hasn't been tackled like directly.
Totally. And something that I would have to add there is that I've had this conversation with Dr. Steven Schwartz. He's been working with gray whales since the 70s in San Ignacio Lagoon, and of what he has shared as a personal note, not as a research, answer, is that he has seen in San Ignacio an increase of the amount of whales that are curious, that from the first times that they've arrived, and having this kind of encounters, that is like, yeah, now we see some more and some more of these whales. Still, it's a small number. of them. If we think about it as a whole, as a species, right, it's still just a few of them that are having this, but at least this is just like a, I'm sharing his personal note that he has expressed, and of course he's quite curious about it, and as other researchers are like, we hopefully could find a way of learning this. But behavior is, it's such a hard thing to, right, to study and to pass it through different generations. It would be an amazing question to have a final answer, or maybe it would be one of those mysteries that is going to prevail through time, which I think it's also pretty cool.
I do have another theme that has popped up in the questions here, and that is the actual interactions with the boat themselves. Have you two ever experienced anything negative with the whales, or have they pushed the boat or even tipped them over?
I've never had such an interaction as pushing it over. The times that it has happened that someone is in the water is because of weather, because there was bad weather and the waves were too crazy or something like that. But it's like rare even that happens, because for like we're super careful and we go out in good weather and things like that, but not really because it was the fault of a whale or something like that happened. Some of them, when they are curious as that they would go underneath the boat and gently push it, and we feel it, and you have to be like, okay, everybody, put your feet in the ground and grab the bench and do that. And that is, some of them, they do that. Some of them even put themselves under the boat and just push it around. We are neutral, remember, and they are taking us somewhere, and the captain is like, I'm not moving the boat, and that's happening. Some of them just go underneath, give you the eye, look, and then they go. So every interaction is different, but they somehow, they know that it's a gentle thing, because easily, of course, easily they could, just throw us, all of us, in the air. They were known for of the hunters as the devilfish, right? In those lagoons, when the gray whales used to be hunted, and the hunters nicknamed them the devilfish because they would break down their little wooden boats. And now they are not doing that, right? So it is another, important thing of why they are choosing to do that, and why easily they could knock us over and we'll be in the water. They are not doing that. So it's another mystery.
Thank you so much for that answer. And as we're coming down to the last minute of the webinar, there's still so many great questions, but I think it's time for me to send it over back to you two for any last closing comments.
Well, we hope that we have inspired you to love to protect, to come, right, to Mexico and to see the Baja gray whales. The end of February is an amazing, amazing time. All the month of February is great. The end and beginning of March is fabulous. And we are going to be there. We hope to see you in person, not only on screen. And we both are quite passionate about whales in general, about these whales. So thank you for taking the time of coming. Maru, would you like to add something?
No, just thank you. Thank you for joining. Thank you for listening. And yes, we hope to see you there. And I hope we convince you that the gray whales are the best of all.
Thank you both, Sofia and Maru, for sharing your passion and incredible knowledge with us. And I'd also like to thank everyone who tuned in. Join us tomorrow for our next daily dose of nature. You can check out this week's lineup, including registration links, on our website at nathab.com/webinars. We did record today's presentation and we'll have the replay available on our website soon. With that, I will conclude the webinar. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye. Adios. Thank you.
Adios.